Svitlana jolted awake to an oppressive silence. The clock on the nightstand glowed red, 5:02 a.m. The bed beside her was cold, the sheets crumpled, but Tara's was gone. Her heart pounded. Last night, he'd slouched on the couch, scrolling through his phone, muttering, "I'm not going to bless the Easter bread, Svitlana. I'm tired of these traditions. I'll stay home, sleep." She nodded, absorbed in preparations, baking paska, embroidering a rushnik, assembling a basket with krashenki. Now, his words buzzed in her head like an alarm. She rose, her bare feet hitting the cold floor. In the hallway, Tara's jacket was missing from the hook. His sneakers, always by the door, were gone. A heavy weight settled in her chest. The scent of freshly baked paska wafted from the kitchen, but it brought no comfort. She grabbed her phone to call him, then saw a message from her neighbor Iryna. "Svitlana, did you see who Tara's just left with? I was by the gate, saw his car." Svitlana froze. Her fingers trembled as she opened the message. Iryna had attached a blurry photo, taken in the dark, but it clearly showed Tara's car, a gray sedan with a cracked rear windshield. Next to it stood a female figure in a light dress, holding a basket. Svitlana zoomed in, but the face was unclear. Her breath grew ragged. She rushed to the window, but the yard was empty, the streetlight swaying in the wind. She returned to the bedroom, trying to gather her thoughts. Tara's never missed Easter. It was their tradition, waking at dawn, going to church, laughing as the priest sprinkled holy water. But this year, he changed. She recalled how he avoided her gaze, hid his phone when she entered the room. Her mind resisted, but her heart knew, something was wrong. Svitlana sat on the bed, clutching her phone. She dialed Tara's. Long rings, then voicemail. She tried again, same result. Her fingers opened WhatsApp. His last message was from yesterday: "Buy more eggs, please." No explanation, no "good morning." She tossed the phone onto the bed as if it burned her. What now? Run to the church? Stay home? She imagined standing in a crowd with her basket, searching for him, feeling pitying stares. No, she wouldn't let herself look like a victim. But waiting for him to return with lies was unbearable. She paced the room, her thoughts buzzing like bees. A month ago, Tara started staying late at work. Once, he came home with the scent of unfamiliar perfume on his shirt. She teased that he smelled like a secretary, and he laughed, but it was nervous. Her jokes felt innocent then, now they stung like needles. She opened his closet. His favorite sweater lay on a shelf, but something glinted beneath. She pulled out a small velvet box, like one for jewelry. Inside was an earring. Singular. Not hers. She never wore large hoops. Her hands shook, and the box fell to the floor. The floor seemed to sway beneath her. She didn't know who the woman was, but the truth hit like thunder. Tara's lied. He wasn't home. He wasn't sleeping. He went to bless the paska, but not with her. Svitlana stood in the kitchen, gripping the Easter rushnik so tightly her knuckles whitened. The basket with paska, krashenki, and candles waited on the table, but the holiday felt drained of meaning. Tara's returned at 7, smelling of incense and cold morning air. Woke up early, went for a drive, he said, avoiding her eyes, and headed for the shower. His lie was so careless that Svitlana felt insulted not just by the betrayal but by his assumption she'd believe it. She tried to hold herself together. Easter was their day, when they hosted family, laughed, shared krashenki. Today, her sister's husband, and Tara's mother were coming. Svitlana couldn't fall apart. She forced a smile as Tara's emerged from the bathroom and asked, "Will you help with the salad?" He nodded, but his movements were mechanical, like he was playing a part. As he chopped cucumbers, Svitlana watched him. His phone lay on the windowsill, screen down. She remembered how he used to leave it anywhere, on the table, in the bathroom, in the car. But for months, he'd kept it close, like a treasure. Once, when she grabbed it to check the weather, he snatched it back, muttering about work messages. Anger and pain simmered within her. She wanted to scream, demand the truth, but knew it would gain nothing. Tara's had a way of twisting things, making her feel guilty. Once, when she asked why he was late, he sighed, "Svitlana, you always look for problems where there aren't any." Her cheeks had burned with shame, and she'd gone silent. Not now. She recalled details. Weeks ago, she noticed Tara's dressed more carefully. His old jeans gave way to new pants, his sneakers to leather shoes. He even started using cologne she hadn't bought. Work has a dress code now, he'd said, but she knew his office didn't care about such things. Then there was the earring. Svitlana hid it in a drawer, but its image haunted her. She imagined Tara slipping it off someone's neck, tucking it into his pocket so she wouldn't find it. Her stomach churned, but she couldn't stop. Who was she? A colleague? A neighbor? Someone Svitlana knew? She thought of every woman Taras interacted with. His secretary, Iryna, often called on weekends, but he brushed it off as urgent reports. Her friend Marta, who always flirted with Taras at parties, though Svitlana thought it was playful. Or someone from church? Last year, Taras talked for ages with Oksana, a young widow, after a service. It seemed innocent then, but now every detail gained weight. She glanced at Taras, now pulling plates from the cupboard. His movements were calm, but his eyes held something new, tension, like he expected her to say something. Svitlana forced herself to look away. She couldn't let him sense her suspicions. Not yet. When guests arrived, she played the perfect hostess. She laughed, poured wine, shared how she baked the pascha. But inside, she burned. Every word from Taras, every gesture, felt false. She knew, if she didn't find the truth, his lies would destroy her. But how? She couldn't just ask. She needed proof. And she resolved to find it. Svitlana sat on the bathroom's edge, holding Taras' shirt. The Easter lunch was over, guests gone, and she was alone with her thoughts. She lifted the shirt to her face, inhaling. It wasn't her perfume, not the soft lavender she loved, but something sweet, sharp, with a hint of vanilla. Her stomach twisted. A month ago, Taras explained a similar scent, the car's air freshener spilled. She believed him. Now, each lie became a brick in the wall growing between them. She tossed the shirt into the laundry basket, her hands shaking. Details she'd ignored now screamed the truth. Taras had changed. His behavior, habits, even his gaze, everything was different. She recalled how he started locking the bathroom door while shaving, though he used to leave it open. How he stopped sharing about his day, offering only, "Everything's fine." How he brushed off her touches, claiming he was tired. Svitlana went to the kitchen, where Easter lunch remnants cluttered the table. She began clearing, trying to distract herself, but her eyes fell on Taras' phone by the bread box, screen down. Her fingers itched to grab it, but she knew he'd set a password. It used to be their anniversary, 1506, but he'd changed it a month ago. "So clients don't snoop," he'd said, but Svitlana felt humiliated. She remembered another incident. 2 weeks ago, she entered the room as Taras typed a message. He abruptly turned off the screen and tossed the phone onto the couch. "Work," he muttered, his voice shaky. She'd teased, writing love letters. He laughed, but it was strained, like a taut string. She hadn't pressed then, but the moment stuck with her. Then there was the earring. Svitlana retrieved it from the drawer. A large silver hoop with a small gem. She never wore such jewelry, her style was simpler, understated. She imagined it dangling from someone's neck, Taras touching it, laughing. Nausea hit, but she couldn't stop. She began listing women who might be involved. Iryna, Taras' secretary, was the likeliest. Younger than Svitlana, she wore tight dresses and laughed loudly at parties. Svitlana recalled Iryna calling Taras on a Saturday evening, and him stepping onto the balcony to talk. When asked, he waved it off, minor stuff, a report. But she'd noticed his smile as he read her texts. Another was Marta, her friend. Marta always flirted with Taras, but Svitlana thought it was her style. "Your husband's a catch," Marta would laugh, her gaze lingering too long. Svitlana never suspected her, but now everything seemed suspicious. She recalled Taras going to the gym more often. "Want to stay in shape," he'd said, but he returned not sweaty but smelling of shower gel. She joked he was getting spa treatments, not workouts. He smiled but didn't reply. Svitlana sat at the table, pressing her temples. She felt like a detective without clues. Her mind screamed that Taras was cheating, but without proof, she could do nothing. She didn't want to seem crazy, starting fights. She needed the truth, and she knew she had to find it. She resolved to act. But how? She didn't know where to start, but one thing was clear, she wouldn't let Taras deceive her anymore. Svitlana sat in the dark bedroom, laptop on her knees. Taras slept beside her, his breathing steady, but she couldn't sleep. Her thoughts buzzed like wasps. She knew she couldn't wait for the truth to surface. Taras wouldn't confess, he lied too skillfully. She needed proof, and she decided to find it. But how? She wasn't a spy, didn't know where to begin. Yet pain and anger pushed her forward. She opened her browser and typed, "How to tell if your husband is cheating." Articles flooded in, 10 signs of infidelity, how to check a phone, how to hire a detective. Svitlana scrolled, feeling both ridiculous and desperate. One article caught her eye, how to track a phone's location. She remembered Taras synced his phone with their shared iCloud. If she could access it, she'd know where he went. She quietly rose, grabbed her phone, and slipped into the kitchen to avoid waking him. She opened iCloud and entered his password, the one he used for everything but his phone. Her heart raced as she accessed Find My iPhone. The map loaded, showing a green dot, their house. Taras was home. But this was just the start. She saved the access and decided to monitor his movements. The next day, Svitlana acted carefully. She didn't want Taras to suspect her. At breakfast, she behaved as usual, poured his coffee, asked about his plans. He mumbled about a client meeting and left quickly. She waited until his card disappeared, then opened iCloud. The dot moved downtown, but not to his office. It stopped at a cafe where they'd once gone on dates. Her throat tightened. She decided to dig deeper. That evening, while Taras showered, she checked his wallet, left on the table. Inside were receipts, one from that cafe, dated today, for 2 coffees and a pastry. Svitlana never ate pastries, she was allergic to nuts. She photographed the receipt and slipped it back. She also checked their bank statements. They shared an account, and she had access to online banking. She spotted odd transactions, flowers, she hadn't received any in months, a restaurant dinner she didn't know about, even a payment at a jewelry store. Her heart raced. The earring she'd found might be part of this. She printed the statements and hid them in a drawer with documents. To gather more, Svitlana started noting every lie Taras told. She kept a log on her phone, said he was at the gym, returned without sweat, went to a meeting at 8 p.m., but location showed a hotel. She even recorded how he tensed when she mentioned Iryna. She talked to Iryna, who'd sent the photo. Iryna confirmed seeing Taras with a woman but couldn't make out her face. She wore a headscarf, like for church, Iryna said. Svitlana thanked her, but her mind painted a scene, Taras with his lover, standing in church, holding a basket, while she waited at home. She closed her laptop and took a deep breath. She knew more work lay ahead, but she was ready. Her goal was clear, find the truth, no matter how painful. Svitlana hoped her suspicions were paranoia, a trick of stress and fatigue. But that morning, checking his phone's location, everything changed. The map showed he wasn't home, as promised, but at a church 15 kilometers away. Therefore Svitlana, without hesitation, grabbed her car keys, her basket with paska and krashenki, and followed him. Her heart pounded, but she knew she had to see it herself. She drove, gripping the wheel so tightly her fingers ached. The road was nearly empty, only a few cars hurried to churches for Easter services. She tried convincing herself it was a mistake. Maybe Taras wanted to surprise her, go to another church to make the holiday special. But deep down, she knew the truth would be different. When she reached the church, the sun was rising, bathing the sky in pink. A crowd gathered, people in festive clothes, with baskets, talking quietly. Svitlana parked nearby and stayed in the car, scanning the crowd. Her eyes frantically searched for Taras. She knew his silhouette, his walk, his habit of adjusting his collar. She almost gave up, thinking she'd erred, when she saw him. Taras stood by the church entrance, holding a basket covered with an embroidered ruchnik. But he wasn't alone. Beside him was a tall woman in a light dress and headscarf tied under her chin. They laughed, their shoulders touching, her hand resting on his elbow. Svitlana's breath caught. She recognized her. It was Iryna, Taras' secretary. Svitlana had seen her at company parties, young, with a bright smile and a loud laugh. She'd always seemed overly friendly, but Svitlana thought it was just her personality. Now, she saw Iryna differently, her hand on Taras, her gaze fixed on him, her basket next to his. Svitlana grabbed her phone and snapped photos, her fingers shaking. She captured them laughing, Taras adjusting Iryna's headscarf, their baskets side by side. Each shot was a blow. She zoomed in to confirm it was him. No doubt remained. She sat in the car, clutching her phone, tears stinging her eyes. But she didn't let them fall. She wouldn't cry. Not here, not now. She imagined confronting them, throwing her basket down, screaming at the crowd. But what would that achieve? Humiliation? Pity from strangers? No, she wouldn't give Taras that power. She took a deep breath and started the engine. She drove home, her mind racing. She thought about how long this had been going on. How often Taras lied about work while meeting Iryna. She recalled every time he came home smelling of perfume, hid his phone, avoided her eyes. It all fit. At home, she sat at the kitchen table and opened her laptop. She transferred the photos from her phone and saved them in a folder labeled Evidence. She knew this was just the beginning. She needed more, messages, calls, receipts. She wouldn't let Tara's wriggle out. Her heart beat faster. She pictured Iryna's face when the truth came out. She imagined Tara's trying to explain, failing. She wasn't a victim anymore. She was a hunter, and her prey had no idea they were being watched. Svitlana thought she'd catch Tara's in a restaurant or hotel, sneaking romantic moments with Iryna. She imagined candlelit dinners, stolen kisses in dim light. But reality was different. Seeing Tara's and Iryna at the church felt like more than betrayal, it was humiliation. They weren't hiding in shadows, they stood openly, laughing, holding baskets, like a couple celebrating Easter together. Therefore Svitlana, swallowing her rage, photographed them from the car, knowing these images would be her weapon. She sat in the car, her hands trembling as she scrolled through the photos. Tara's adjusted Iryna's headscarf with a tenderness Svitlana hadn't seen in years. Iryna smiled, her eyes gleaming as she looked at him. Their baskets stood side by side, covered with rushniks, as if they shared not just this moment but an entire life. Svitlana's throat tightened. This wasn't just infidelity, it was public shame. She recalled how Iryna acted at last year's corporate party. She joked with Taras, touched his arm, laughed at his every word. Svitlana had thought it was innocent flirting, even teased her friends that Iryna charms all men. Now she saw, it wasn't innocent. Iryna knew Taras was married. She knew about Svitlana. And still stood here, with a basket, beside him. Svitlana imagined them planning it. Taras telling Iryna, Svitlana will stay home, she won't know. Them laughing, thinking they'd fooled her. Her pain turned to anger. She wouldn't let them think she was blind. She took a deep breath and saved the photos to cloud storage, ensuring Taras couldn't delete them if he found her phone. She knew these were just the first step. She needed undeniable proof, messages, calls, something he couldn't deny. She recalled every lie, client meetings, late reports, gym. Each was part of his double life. At home, her mind worked overtime. She opened her laptop and searched for ways to access Taras' messages. She knew he synced his phone with iCloud but wasn't sure if she could recover deleted chats. She found a data recovery program and installed it, though it took longer than expected. While it ran, she reviewed the bank statements she'd printed. She found another transaction, a payment at a women's clothing store. Svitlana never received dresses or lingerie from Taras. She photographed the statement and added it to her evidence folder. She recalled how Taras changed his phone password. She tried combinations, birthdays, their anniversary, even the car's plate number. None worked. But she didn't give up. She knew he'd eventually leave his phone unattended, and she'd be ready. Her heart raced. She pictured Iryna's face when the truth surfaced. She imagined Taras trying to justify himself, as always, but this time she'd have proof. She wouldn't let him accuse her of paranoia. She wanted to storm the church, expose Taras and Iryna to everyone, scatter their baskets, and scream until her voice gave out. She pictured their stunned faces, the crowd's whispers, their shame. But she stopped herself, gripping the wheel until her knuckles whitened. A scene would only humiliate her, make her a victim in others' eyes. She wouldn't give Taras that power. Therefore she drove home and began collecting evidence, methodically, like a detective who knew truth was her only weapon. She sat at the kitchen table, spreading out her laptop, printed bank statements, and a notebook with jotted lies. Her evidence folder already held photos of Taras and Iryna at the church, a cafe receipt, a jewelry store payment. But it wasn't enough. She knew Taras could twist things. He'd say Iryna just needed help, that they met by chance. She needed irrefutable proof, messages, calls, something he couldn't deny. She opened iCloud and tried recovering deleted messages. The program she'd installed was slow, but it eventually revealed WhatsApp chats Taras had erased. One was with Iryna. Svitlana's heart skipped. The messages were brief but damning. Meet at 6 p.m. She thinks I'm at work. You looked amazing yesterday. Delete this, just in case. Svitlana screenshotted each, her hands shaking with fury. She checked call logs. Taras often called Iryna in the evenings, when he claimed to be stuck at the office. Some calls lasted 20 to 30 minutes. She noted dates and times, cross-referencing them with her log of his meetings. Everything matched. She added the data to her folder. She retrieved the earring from Taras' closet. She photographed it next to the jewelry store statement. She didn't know if he'd given it to Iryna, but it was another puzzle piece. She found a movie ticket in his wallet, for a film she hadn't seen. The date matched an evening he was supposedly at the gym. She knew she was risking everything. If Taras found out she was digging, he'd accuse her of invading his privacy. But she didn't stop. Each piece of evidence made her stronger, dulled the pain. She imagined showing him the files, his face paling, realizing he'd lost. She also tracked Iryna on social media. She found her Instagram, filled with photos in new dresses, with bouquets, at restaurants. In one, Svitlana spotted a familiar jacket in the background, Taras. She saved the image and added it to her evidence. She recorded a brief talk with Taras, asking where he'd been last night. He grumbled, with a client, "I told you." His voice was irritated, but Svitlana stayed calm, smiling. She knew his location showed a hotel, not an office. The recording went into the folder. Her fear faded. She no longer dreaded the truth, she sought it. Each piece was a brick in the wall she built against Taras. She imagined Iryna learning their secret was exposed. How she tried to explain but fail. When she finished for the day, she closed her laptop and checked the time. Taras would be home in an hour. She hid her notebook, cleared her browser history. She knew she had to be careful. But inside, she felt power. She was no longer a victim. She was a hunter, and her prey didn't know they were being stalked. Svitlana felt pain in her chest morph into cold, searing rage. She'd gathered enough evidence, photos, messages, statements, recordings, to shatter Taras' lies. But she didn't rush to confront him. An emotional outburst could backfire, letting him turn the tables. Therefore she acted smarter. She invited Iryna to an Easter lunch, pretending nothing was wrong, and planned to make them both feel the weight of their betrayal. She called Iryna the day after Easter. "Come for lunch, it's been ages," she said, keeping her voice warm and casual. Iryna hesitated but agreed, likely thinking Svitlana suspected nothing. Svitlana smiled, hanging up. She knew Iryna would come to maintain the facade of friendship. It played into her hands. She prepared meticulously. She set the table like for a feast, paska, krashenki, salads, wine. But her real plan wasn't the food. She left her laptop in plain sight, the evidence folder open so the screen was visible from Iryna's seat. She also placed Taras' phone on the table, knowing he'd check it. Taras came home early, smelling of incense and the vanilla perfume Svitlana now despised. He rambled about, sleeping all morning, and driving around. Svitlana nodded, smiling, though his lies sickened her. She noticed him glance nervously at his phone when a message came. She knew it might be Iryna. When Iryna arrived, Svitlana greeted her with a hug, playing the perfect hostess. Iryna wore an elegant dress, her makeup flawless, but her smile was forced. Svitlana caught her stealing a glance at Taras when she thought no one saw. It only fueled her fire. During lunch, Svitlana kept the talk light. She shared about the paska, asked Iryna about work. But she watched their every move. Taras sat silently, nodding when addressed. Iryna tried to be cheerful, but her laugh rang false. Svitlana waited for her moment. She accidentally brushed the laptop's mouse, and the screen lit up, showing the photo of Taras and Iryna at the church. Iryna froze, her fork halfway to her mouth. Svitlana feigned surprise. "Oh, that's you two at Easter?" "I didn't know," she said, locking eyes with Iryna. Iryna flushed, stammering, "It was spontaneous. I just asked Taras to help with my basket." Taras coughed, trying to change the subject, but Svitlana didn't let him. "Such nice photos, right?" "I have more," she added, scrolling through shots of them laughing, touching. She noticed Iryna glance at Taras, seeking rescue, but he looked away. Then she noticed Taras' phone on the table. "Oh, you've got a message," she said, handing it to him. She knew it held a fake chat she'd created from a burner number, saying, "You said Svitlana wouldn't find out. Now what?" Taras paled, his fingers trembling as he opened it. Iryna stared, her eyes wide with panic. Svitlana stood, smiling. "Something wrong?" she asked innocently. Iryna mumbled about an urgent errand and fled, nearly knocking over a chair. Taras sat, clutching his phone. Svitlana sat across from him, her gaze icy. "We'll talk later," she said softly. She knew she'd won this battle. Her plan worked. She made them feel fear and shame without losing her dignity. Svitlana no longer cried at night, hiding her face in the pillow, replaying memories of better times. The pain that consumed her after Taras' betrayal slowly became something else, strength, growing with every piece of evidence, every calculated step. She was no longer a victim waiting for explanations. She became a strategist, planning each move. Her goal was clear: protect herself, her future, and make Taras regret. She started with practical steps. First, she contacted a lawyer recommended by a friend. They met in a small cafe to avoid suspicion. The lawyer, an older man with a gray beard, reviewed her evidence folder. "You have a strong case," he said, pointing to the photos, screenshots, and statements. He explained how to safeguard her finances and property during a divorce. Svitlana listened, taking notes. She wouldn't let Taras leave her with nothing. The next day, she went to the bank and opened a separate account in her name. She transferred half their joint savings, knowing Taras might hide money once the truth surfaced. She also changed passwords for all her accounts, from email to social media. She didn't trust Taras and didn't want him tracking her. Svitlana began caring for herself. She enrolled in yoga classes she dreamed of for years but postponed for lack of time. The sessions made her body and mind stronger. She updated her wardrobe, buying dresses that flattered her figure. She looked in the mirror and saw not a broken woman but one reclaiming control. She changed the house's locks, telling Taras the old ones were sticking. Really, she wanted to ensure he didn't bring Iryna over when she was out. She installed a small camera by the entrance, recording visitors. It might seem paranoid, but she didn't care. She trusted no one. Svitlana planned her confrontation with Taras. She didn't want a fight or hysterics. She pictured sitting across from him, calm and confident, with the evidence folder on the table. She practiced in front of the mirror, perfecting a tone, cold but not aggressive. She knew her calm would unnerve him more than shouts. She confided in trusted friends, sharing parts of the story, enough for support but not details. They offered to come over, talk, but Svitlana knew she'd manage alone. She needed their encouragement, not pity. Iryna said, "You've changed. Stronger." Svitlana smiled. She felt it. She reviewed her evidence folder, ensuring everything was there, photos of Taras and Iryna, their chat screenshots, call recordings, receipts, even camera footage of Taras returning late, reeking of perfume. She knew it was enough to destroy his lies. But she waited for the perfect moment. Her heart beat steadily. She no longer feared the future. She imagined life without Taras, free, without lies, without suspicion. She pictured next Easter with friends, laughing, not looking back. Her pain lingered, but it no longer ruled her. She closed her laptop and touched the Pascha basket still on the table. It reminded her of the betrayal but also her strength. She was no longer the Svitlana who baked for Taras. She was new, and this Svitlana was ready to fight. Svitlana sat at the kitchen table, holding the evidence folder. The day she'd waited for had come. She'd asked Taras for a serious talk after work, and he agreed, though his voice sounded wary. She knew he sensed something. After the lunch with Iryna, when she accidentally showed the photos and fake message, Taras grew quieter, edgier. Svitlana felt her power grow. Today, she'd finish her revenge, not with screams but with cold, measured truth. Taras walked into the kitchen at 7, tossing his keys on the table. "What's this about?" he asked, avoiding her eyes. Svitlana pointed to the chair across from her. "Sit," she said, her voice smooth as glass. She placed the folder before him but didn't open it. "I know about Iryna," she began, locking eyes with him. Taras flinched but tried to hide it, adjusting his collar. "What do you mean?" he asked, his tone too innocent. Svitlana smiled, not warmly, but coldly. She opened the folder and laid out the first photo, him and Iryna at the church, laughing, holding baskets. Taras paled. "It's not what you think," he started, but Svitlana raised a hand, silencing him. "Don't lie." "I have everything," she said, presenting evidence piece by piece. Screenshots of their chats, meet after church, she won't know. Statements with payments for flowers and dresses she never saw. A recording of his lie about a client meeting. Footage of him returning late, smelling of vanilla. With each piece, Taras shrank, as if deflating. He tried to speak. "It was just once, she provoked me," but his words sounded weak, like a child's excuses. Svitlana didn't interrupt. She let him talk, knowing he was digging deeper. When he fell silent, she leaned closer. "I'm filing for divorce," she said, her voice hard as stone. "You have a week to pack and leave. My lawyer's already working on it. And don't think you'll take more than you're owed." She pointed to the folder. "This evidence will go to court if you try to wriggle out." Taras stared, his eyes empty. "Svitlana, we can fix this," he mumbled, but she shook her head. "You had a chance to be honest. You chose Iryna. Live with it." She stood, signaling the talk was over. "The door's there," she added, pointing. Taras sat, clenching his hands, searching for words that didn't come. He rose slowly and walked to the door, his steps heavy, like a man who'd lost everything. Svitlana stood, watching him go, until the door clicked shut. She took a deep breath, feeling a weight lift from her shoulders. She imagined Iryna learning their secret was out. Taras trying to explain why he was kicked out. She knew their lies had ruined them, while she stood tall, strong, unshaken. She approached the Pascha basket still on the table. She touched the embroidered ruchnik, recalling how she'd prepared for Easter, unaware of the betrayal. Now, it symbolized her transformation. She was no longer the woman who baked for Taras. She was free. She poured herself a glass of wine and raised it, looking out the window. To truth, she said softly. Christ is risen. Her voice brimmed with strength, and she knew, next Easter, she'd celebrate anew, without lies, without pain, as the woman she'd become.